righty.
Cool.
All right. Welcome to this, I'd like to say, special edition of the Copper Trees. Normally it's three questions with the Copper Trees, but today we're in conversation with Danny Clinch because when you get Danny in the mix, you just have to talk, and we're not going to limit it to three questions. Um, Danny doesn't need an introduction really, but I will intro him. For those of you that don't know, Danny has established himself as one of the premier photographers across the entire music scene. He has shot and filmed a wide range of artists from Johnny Cash to Tupac to Springsteen. His work has appeared on hundreds of album covers and in publications like Vanity Fair, Spin, Rolling Stone, GQ, Esquire, and more. Mr. Danny Clinch has also presented his work in numerous galleries and published four books: Discovery Inn, When the Iron Bird Flies, Motor Drive, and Still Moving. As a director, Danny has received three Grammy Award nominations. He has also directed music videos, the likes of Willie Nelson, favorite of mine, Tom Waits, Pearl Jam, Foo Fighters, Dave Matthews, and many more. Danny recently increased his presence in Asbury Park, New Jersey, by not only creating the Transparent Clinch Gallery, which I love, but he also stepped up to be a partner and promoter of the See Here Now Festival, which is the most fun ever. And just to add to it, he also plays his harmonica and the Tangiers Blues Band. And, he has a great family and does all the things. And we're so excited to have him here.
Yes,
Today,
Danny.
Yeah, I'm
welcome.
happy to be here. As a nice introduction. Thank you.
Well, you know, you're quite the man, and we're grateful to have you here.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
Um, let's dive right in. I'm just curious to know how you're doing during this crazy year that we've had, an ongoing year. What's been your creative world like, and how have you kind of iterated or shifted your creative practice? And tell me what's been happening during this time.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of crazy for me, as everybody. I find myself talking about my specific journey and realizing that everybody else has had their own crazy journey here. I recall, actually, I'll tell you, just about a year ago, uh, I was in Seattle, and I was doing a session with Pearl Jam
Yeah,
for their new record.
yeah,
We, everybody was starting to get concerned. There was no handshaking. We all, were elbowing and saying hello. I think we were wearing masks, and it was we were all a little bit concerned, but things
yeah,
hadn't really hit the fan yet. Um, so we had Pearl Jam on our See Here Now festival for 2020, which didn't happen. We have all agreed that they will return this September in 2021, um, which is a blessing for all of us. And but I got back to New Jersey, and I remember saying, "Oh, there's going to be a lockdown for a couple of weeks," and to be honest, I was like, "All right, I can deal with that."
family
I mean,
time.
I'm
Yeah.
like on a speeding train. I'm just cruising all the time. I'm in an airport, and then I'm home for a little bit, and then I'm
Yeah,
on another airport, and I'm going here and I'm going there. It's like sometimes I realize, like, oh, what did I do the last couple of weeks? Well, I don't know. Last year was like I did I did a her photo shoot. I did a future video. I went out to Pearl Jam. I thought I should maybe have a tour T-shirt. Is what I was thinking. Like, give me a tour T-shirt. Danny Clinch tour.
That'd be
Uh,
awesome, actually.
I mean, I got it.
Yeah.
Uh, and so, anyway, I put my feet up, and I was like, wow, I can. This
yeah,
is nice. I felt like I jumped off a speeding train, and I just literally on this couch right here put my feet up and just, kind of relaxed for a little while, and then reality set in for all of us, and I didn't know what we were going to do. And my wife Maria, said, she looks forward, uh, you know, has the ability to look forward. I look, maybe to the next day or my afternoon or
yeah,
whatever. Uh, and we decided that we would start to look through my archive and look at the images that I've shot over the years. I think as a photographer, I always hear people say, like, as an artist, oh, you're only as good as the last piece that you made, and you got to be evolving and all that stuff, which is all true. But at a certain point, I started to think about, as a photographer, I do a shoot, say, with say Pearl Jam, for example, uh, 10 years ago, and we do the shoot and everything turns out great. They need 5 images. I get those 5 images that I love at the time. Um, Maybe while I was there, we did a portrait session. I might have been in the recording studio with them, like documenting what was going on in the recording studio. And out of all those hundreds of photographs that I took, I choose 5, 10 photos most,
Wow.
that they put out into the world to represent that moment in the band's time, and that sort of thing. And so, for me to go back into my archive and look at what I was doing in 1993 and go into the Nas Illmatic session that I did to pull out images that I had kind of passed over for whatever reason. And now we know, Nas went on to become, you know, one of the best, of his kind. And that record was so cinematic, and there was so much about where he was from, and how he wanted to be photographed in his community. And I go back in there, and I realized that I not only photographed Nas, but I photographed all his friends that were hanging out, and there was like a bunch of little kids come around and were hanging out on their bicycles because this guy who lives in their neighborhood just got a record deal with Sony, and you know
Yeah.
and so anyway, I'm dragging it out a little bit here, but take all those artists that I worked with, back in the day, Blind Melon and the Smashing Pumpkins, and um, Public Enemy, uh, LL Cool J, all these sort of, and you go back in there and you dig through and find these images that you had completely forgotten about or had never even considered, but they carry, it's like a fine wine, right? The longer it goes,
Yeah.
people's lives change, they do certain things. So to circle back to it, I've been doing that. I've been digging through my archives, whether it's my early work in hip hop or going back to Bonnaroo, where I was the staff photographer at Bonnaroo for 20 years, and I basically set up a portrait studio there and did portraits of everybody that's come through, and as well as, like, I directed some films about Bonnaroo. I directed a lot of the super jams that they had, and of course, you know at Bonnaroo, you start at 11 in the morning and you don't go to bed until the sun's coming up,
11
and
in the morning.
you know you have your last slice of spicy pie from the your surprise are still open, and then you go home and go to sleep for a couple hours and you do it all again. But
Wow.
in fact, Maria and I were having a meeting with a woman who's helping us organize the archive, and she was, first of all, she was impressed at how organized our archive is up to this point, which I was very proud of. I think I give Maria credit for that. But she was like, yeah, your hard drive, your main hard drive has over 4 million images in there.
Whoa.
Danny.
God, that's insane.
I was like, woo, okay. Well, you
Oh,
know what? I think also, I think there are, there's a lot of different style of photography and people who photograph even in the music space. You have some that just do album covers. Maybe they just do a publicity session and they do the album cover. Maybe you have people who are just like to shoot the live shows and they're hired to come out, shoot the live show.
Yeah.
Some people are hired to go in the recording studio, and they're really good at that. Um, for me, I've just been obsessed with music and photography for so long, um, that I do album packaging and I do publicity, and I'm at the show and I'm photographing while someone's writing a set list.
right.
I'm in the recording studio. The band is writing lyrics, so they're coming up with new new tunes. I was recently, or semi recently, in the recording studio with Alicia Keys while she was recording. It was really cool to see her process. To see how she had, like, written most of the lyrics, but she hadn't gotten them all, and she was just kind of running a loop of the tune over and over again, and she would sing different lyrics to it, and just to be a part of that process is pretty exciting. So for me, I I kind of like am immersed in all things music
Yeah.
related, photography wise, and then sometimes I end up on stage too playing my harmonica. So
And there's got to be like such a different energy to each of those shoots. I mean, I can imagine like from being in the studio, the band's in one, headspace, and sort of that's one atmosphere. Live is its own
yeah,
beast, and all the way to you photographing folks at the Grammys, like right after they step off stage. You
yeah,
know, when
yeah,
with this, all the big energy that's leading up to that. Are there like
yeah.
massive similarities or differences you can sort of cite in those scenarios?
For me, I feel like my energy is often the same. It's like, you're responding to the situation that you're in. If you're in the recording studio and people are recording, they know that that they don't want to be bothered. You don't want to insert yourself into the equation. You want to be kind of invisible. When you're at the Grammys, you have to be part producer. You have to be directing people. I need you over here. This is where you're going to go. I've got 3 minutes to take this photograph. And I not only want to capture you with the Grammy, but I want to capture a really strong portrait uh, for myself, without the Grammy or even with the Grammy. Someone shows up and Nora Jones has 6 Grammys. Beyonce, it's trying to hold these, 4 Grammys, and they're falling out of her hands, and I'm like trying to get the moment. But so they're all a little bit different for different reasons, and um, sometimes you're capturing a moment, sometimes you're directing a moment. But I always like to leave that little bit of space for spontaneity. For things that you don't know are going to happen.
Yeah.
And going back to like you having all this energy and being at Bonnaroo all day, like tell me where you get how do you refuel your energy, or where does your energy come from? Like I'm sure that being on stage or being in these moments is very exhilarating, but you as Danny, like how do you refuel yourself, or like not 22 anymore, not we're all getting like how do you I saw you at See Here Now last year. You're
Yeah.
from start to finish. Like
Yeah.
here we are, we meet, then we're at the gallery, then we go to Stone Pony, you're on stage there, like you don't stop. And then there's Dave, and then I'm like, wow, and then I'm like, Danny's on stage with Dave, and now it's like midnight and you're still
Yeah.
going. Like how do you do it, Danny?
It's adrenaline. I think really, it's adrenaline, and I've like always had a big fear of missing out. It's like I hate to miss anything. So I'm trying to make sure that I see everything and be a part of as much as I can. So that's really how I do it. It really is just like I don't know. I've always been. People have often said that they're like, how do you do the how do you do the portraits at Bonnaroo, and then you're up until 3 in the morning at the Super Jam. Like I don't know. I just
Coffee? Are you a coffee man? Are you a
I'm a
tea
coffee
man?
guy. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, coffee. No drugs, coffee.
yeah, coffee is the way.
Um, yeah. So and I feed off of other people's energy too. Like if I'm tired and I show up and you know Jim James is doing the Super Jam, and he's got this great energy, and he's such a grateful guy. He's like, oh, thanks for coming out. I'm so glad you're here. Or I'm part of the director crew, or, documenting. I just feed off of the energy of people. And then, like they say, I'll sleep when I die.
Amazing, man.
Oh, man.
Oh man, so good. Well, you mentioned harmonica too. We all know that like how musical instrument collections can get, particularly in the guitar world. But what does a Danny Clinch harmonica collection look like?
Well, my harmonica collection is, well, it's, it's a bunch of harmonicas thrown in a bag. I actually have a really cool case. Someone made me a really cool case, um, and I can go get it really quickly. Actually, I should show you.
Yeah, let's see it.
You can edit this stuff or no? Do you edit it
Yeah,
all?
yeah, I can do a couple.
Yeah.
Oh, hi.
Yeah.
Is it?
My Zoom kitty. She just shows up whenever I do a Zoom,
Awesome.
and comes and hangs out. So
He's like, pay attention to me.
Toto, right? Funny. Only on the Zooms. I'll
Only
get
on the
this bag.
Zoom.
It'll take me 30 seconds to grab this bag.
I have it.
Hey. Hello, my Kate.
Where am I, Eric? Topo Chico.
Topo, I know.
I'm gonna bring some more back home.
Right.
Have
So this is the bag I usually carry my harps in. It's an Ona bag, which is a photography bag company, I believe. ONA. They make bags for photography for cameras and whatnot. But there's a bunch of stuff in here, and I bartered with somebody, and James, gosh, I'm trying to think of his last name. It's not striking me right now. His name is James, but he made me this cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
bad.
So it opens like that, and there are the harmonicas in there.
It
Sweet.
looks like you could do surgery too. It's like, let me
Totally.
in my kit and I'm going to open
Totally.
your heart with my music.
Surgical
Yep, yep.
harmonica. Yeah.
Yay.
So
Did you, speaking of your harmonicas, like, did you have a, like, are you a Muddy Waters fan, or like what, how did the blues come into the groove, Danny, or, the band for a while?
you know what? That's a good. I'll tell you how actually. I was always a lover of blues based rock and roll. The Allman Brothers and Skinner and Led Zeppelin and all that stuff. So the Rolling Stones, and you think, really, they all took the blues and bent it into what they were doing, right? And I might have heard of some Muddy Waters and stuff, and was introduced to Muddy Waters and appreciated that.
Yeah.
And when I started to play the harmonica, well, actually, what I think came first was I was working with this photographer named Timothy White, and he had he and his assistant Russell, they were just real music heads, and I thought I was a music head, and then Russell was a guy who was like, at the time, this is pre-digital anything, he would carry around cassettes that he would taped off of his favorite jazz and blues radio station in LA, and he would carry around this box of cassettes with him, and we would play them all the time. And he started to turn me on to stuff that I just didn't know, Jimmy Reed and Slim Harpo, Little Walter, more Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Sonny Boy, and all these like great blues. And I really just gravitated towards it. And I had been playing harmonica a little bit, and it just encouraged me to like start to play more. And when you photograph celebrities like Timothy did all the time, we were like constantly on the road, constantly going and sitting and waiting for hours for a celebrity to get ready or to show up, or and so we'd be sitting in a van, and Russell would be playing some blues, and he'd be banging on the dashboard of the van, and I'd just get my harp out and start playing, and it really became like just like a great education in the blues. So Timothy White and Russell Ward, are rest in peace, were really instrumental in like sort of reigniting and educating me in this blues music that I loved. And then when I started photographing on my own, getting assignments on my own, I met Blind Melon, and I started to cut my teeth really with them, because they were a young band. I was a young photographer. They were like, come to the recording studio. I did publicity sessions with them. I went on the road. We went to Europe together, like all that stuff. And at one point, I told Shannon that Shannon Hoon, the singer from the band, and the whole band, I was just like, oh yeah, I play harmonica, because Shannon played harmonica. And he was like, oh yeah, you do? And I said, yeah. And he said, he liked to poke people, and he liked to sort of make people uncomfortable. He enjoyed it, and it was fun to watch, and maybe not as fun to be poked at, but but anyway, he said, "Oh yeah, you should come up and play. Come up and play with us." And I was like, "Oh no, I don't. I like played once at a barbecue, and I'm not going to come up on stage." Uh, and he said, "No, yeah, it's all a big barbecue, man. You're gonna come up and play. Let's go through this song."
Oh my
And
God.
we went through the song "Change," which is then they would do like a little breakdown in the middle that was really bluesy, kind of like modeled after like "Dear Mr. Fantasy," bluesy kind of jam. And I played it and I said, "Oh well, that didn't feel so bad. I was in the right key. Everything seemed good." And the only thing is they were opening for Soundgarden and Neil Young, so it was Blind Melon, Soundgarden, Neil Young. I'm like,
Whoa.
am I really going to go out there on the stage?
Yes, definitely.
So I did, and it was either pee my pants or try to sink or swim.
That's
Uh,
wild. I didn't know
That's
that. I just thought it was like
yeah.
Tangiers.
Oh no,
I had
no,
no
it
idea.
was purely Blind Melon. Like, and then they started inviting me up all the time. In fact, I even played. If you can Google it on YouTube, but Blind Melon, Woodstock, Change, and
nice.
I come out halfway through the song and I play in front of 200,000
That
people or
part.
whatever it was.
That harmonica part is like a hook, like a legit hook in that song too. It's like really
Yeah,
a prominent part in that tune.
yeah. Well, Christopher plays the beginning on the Woodstock Jam, and then I kind of walk out in the middle of it and start playing. So it was crazy, as you could imagine. But then really, if they hadn't done that, I would Kate wouldn't be wearing the Tangiers Blues Band shirt. You know what I'm saying? So I'm so grateful. And then so many bands have been really kind enough to have me up. The Foo Fighters started to have me up all the time,
Mhm.
playing with them on Stacked Actors, and Willie Nelson's harmonica player is a really good friend of mine, and he would, if I was out on a special occasion, I remember it was my birthday once, and he just made sure that I got out there and got to play with Willie and stuff. And he grabbed my camera and started taking pictures of me while I was playing with Willie and stuff. It was pretty cool. And then of course, I played with Eddie Vedder a couple of times at some of his solo shows. I remember when Clarence Clemens passed away and
Yeah.
Eddie was playing at the Beacon, and we did open all night, I think, and Eddie broke a string and we were having a jam. It was so much fun. And then I played at ACL with them on Red Mosquito, and I played a couple other times on Red Mosquito, and then a couple other shows. So it's pretty crazy, to be honest. You
Crazy.
know, yeah. I
Yeah.
don't even really believe it. I just tell the story, and I'm like, I guess it's true.
It's because of that fear of missing out, right?
Right. And I got a camera over here. I'm playing my harmonica. I'm trying to take a picture. Yeah.
Gross.
I love it. Yeah.
I feel like also with that, it's like you have that, people, Shannon pulled you into the mix that way, but now, I mean, I feel like you're the Pied Piper. That's what you do. Like the first night that I met you, we were having dinner, and then, Jake Clemens shows up, and then you're like, let's walk over to the gallery, and then it's Rachel, and then it's like Crystal, and it's like everybody, you're so inclusive, and like you have this collaborative spirit about you. And I've heard you talk a little bit about growing up and how your dad was very like bringing everybody and making people's people. And I felt that right away when I met you. It's like you're not only somebody that talks about having you hear about trust and access with you and this and that, but it's like you walk the walk. Like you're like, oh, I see you, I feel you, and like you exude this natural collaborative energy, like walking art. Um, so I
I,
don't know where I'm going with that, but I wanted to say that.
well, I think I appreciate that, and I did have a great example in my mom and dad who are both that way, um, and collaboration is really important to me in my work. I think you know uh, collaboration is important in my photography because I'm not so heavy-handed in it. It's about a moment. It's about being relaxed. It's about trying to create something that's more soulful, and it's not often so planned out and produced, kind of thing. Um, So there's that, and then musically speaking too, like when I get to play with my harmonica with the band or with other bands or whatever. Again, it's like that musical conversation, which is always a collaboration. It's spontaneity. It's like it's that conversation. Sometimes you're speaking quietly, sometimes you're yelling, sometimes you're laughing, sometimes you're crying.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's a
So,
language. It's a very pure language. It's like you have your Danny Clinch language, and I think other people understand it, and that's why they trust you with it. They're like they know that if your camera is your language, and they know how you speak through that lens, and I
yeah,
think that they open up because they know that there's a pureness to that. They
yeah.
can
It's
use the language.
and it's after the years of working with certain artists, there's just a certain amount of trust, and people. I know early in my career, I was not a great director of people. I was just trying to stand there and wait for something cool to happen. And when you're supposed to be running the show of a portrait session or doing a editorial piece for a magazine, the musician shows up and they're like, "Where do you want me to go? What do you want me to do?" Um, and it was rough because I was young, but I've realized since that people they want to be um, directed a little bit and to know that the light looks good on them, or like, oh, if you
Yeah.
turn this way, I like that. This, if you put your hand up for a couple, that would be great. Just sort of just communicating with people, and then once they relax and feel comfortable, maybe they're going to propose something like, oh, what if I sit forward like this, or they just do it and you try and capture it. So it really is. Sometimes it's a real big move, so to speak, and then sometimes it's just a very subtle move that really makes the difference from one frame to the next.
Yeah. Danny, offline before you were talking to us a little bit about a project that you recently did that you were super stoked on because it was you, the artist, and your editor, and everything kind of just came together, and the folks you were working on it for just had no changes. I'm curious, like, have you had that previous or that experience in your career where it's like there was just so much pushback, and or you had an idea and there was just lots of pushback on it, and what that looked like?
Uh, I I can't really I've had some weird experiences here and there, but people hire me for what I do, and like I think Kate was just saying, you could see my visual language and what it is, and if that's what people want, you know, that's what they get. And so it's as honest as it comes. It's just like an extension of me. So um, I think if they wanted, a still life photographer, they would hire them. I guess, and if they want, you know, but I've had things happen that are just really strange. Just certain personalities and things like that, and for me, like I like all sorts of people. I just feel like I people that are difficult, quote unquote, are just, I find it to be entertaining at a certain point. You just have to be like, okay, well, this is what I got. Like, I'll work with it. And how far can I get with this person? Can I get them to actually go like, oh, this guy ain't so bad. Like, oh,
Mhm.
that was a great shoot. I actually really enjoyed myself. I mean, I've heard people say that before. People who don't like having their picture taken, come out of a session and say, I don't always look forward to a session, but I got to tell you, that wasn't bad. I really enjoyed myself.
That's
That's
awesome.
that's the success in my opinion, right?
Totally, man.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I wanted to ask you, Danny, maybe we have time for one more here, but I heard you mention this. It might have been when you were talking with Joseph Arthur about when you were shooting Tupac in your mind, like it was supposed to be for a quarter of a page, but in your mind, you're like, I'm shooting this for the cover of Rolling Stone. I'm curious to know about your mindset when you go into a project or to anything. I thought that was so cool to hear you say you knew it wasn't the cover at the time. It ended up being the cover, but
Yeah.
um,
Um, I think my approach is to educate myself as much as I can on that person, and a lot of times specifically where they are at that moment in their life. What are their inspirations at that time? If it's a musician, what's the record called? What are some of the songs called? What's the theme of that record, and whatnot? And you know, um, that helps inform me, and so I come in with a set of ideas and maybe some what I would call a mood board of
Yeah.
ideas and feelings, and maybe this is a lot of motion because I feel like this motion in the music, or maybe it's backlit and flary for some reason, and you just come up with this approach, and then I kind of leave a big gap open for some spontaneity. Like, what are they going to bring to the table? Sometimes I can talk to them ahead of times, and sometimes I can't. Sometimes it's a 3 hour, 4 hour, 5 hour affair, and other times it's 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's so good to hear because so many people think it's just like this magic that happens, and there are magical moments and capturing the moment, but it is also all that preparation ahead of time of like work plus, all these other things that equal the magic.
yeah. Preparation. It is. It's like I'm sure there's a cliche around it, but the idea of being prepared.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, you know, you could have like I said, a 20-minute photo shoot, but you've had 3 or 4 days to prepare for it, and you're there, and then like you're waiting or waiting and waiting, and then all of a sudden, bam, like I remember early on, I did a shoot it was for Entertainment Weekly, and I was photographing, um, I was photographing,
So you're going through the 4 million photos in your.
no, I don't know why I'm having a brain freeze because I was just looking at the photos of her. Um, a hip hop artist, worked a lot with Timberland, and she is a legend. Missy Elliott. So I had to dig through my archive. So it was Missy Elliott, and we showed up, and they were like, okay, well, she's going to get prepared. Wait in the other room, and I whatever, like an hour went by, like 90 minutes went by, and she was going somewhere. She was getting her nails done, getting her hair done, getting this everything, and they finally came out and they were like, hey man, I'm sorry, but we just don't have the time to do
Whoa.
the shoot. Like she's got to get to where she's going. And they basically were telling me, I said, listen, give me 2 minutes, in the hallway as
Yeah.
she leaves and walks towards the elevator, and you know, and I got some great photos. It was the ugliest light ever. It was like one of those like overhead lights that are like a little puck light that just shines down, and it just looks terrible on 99% of the time. And I just used it to my advantage, and the light was hitting her eyelashes and putting
Wow.
shapes on her face, and then she had her nails were done, and I was just manic for like 90 seconds, and I was like, okay, thanks, and off she went.
Oh,
And of course I couldn't see anything because it was all film back then, and the film came back and I was like, this is dope, and one of the images ended up in my Discovery In book. So
that's amazing. So good.
Wasn't there like a Johnny Cash moment in the hallway too, or like you had got John and then like he's walking on stage and then
yeah,
that's.
yeah, I did a whole session with him for a couple hours for the cover of an acoustic guitar magazine, and it was a great session. He was great, and I loved the photos. But I asked him, I did it before a show, and I asked him, when you're walking to the stage before the show, could I just hang out and document? And he said yes. And there he was standing there. I could hear the band ramping up, and ladies and gentlemen, the man in black, and Johnny's just standing there, and I like took a couple of frames of that, and that ended up being my favorite shot, of which I sent years later to Rick Rubin when he was doing the American recordings with Johnny Cash, making the second record. And I said, basically, Johnny Cash means a lot to myself and my family. My mom and dad are big fans, and I want you to have this photograph. Thank you for, rediscovering this, national treasure that is Johnny Cash. And I sent it to him. He put it up in his studio, and when they were doing the Solitary Man recordings, everybody, when they decided they were going to call it Solitary Man, everybody said, "Oh, this has got to be the cover."
That's
And
pretty
so
cool.
I got a call from Rick Rubin, or his assistant at the time, and said,
Mhm.
"Do you have any more? What else do you have? Because we want to create a whole album package around this photo."
I
Wow.
love that so
It's
much.
pretty cool to have a Johnny Cash album cover.
That's
Come on.
bananas.
That's a pretty awesome phone call, man.
Yeah,
I guess,
pretty
yeah,
good.
and with that, I mean, that I just,
Yeah,
I could talk all day, Danny. I mean, I can't
yeah,
wait to get back out there once things open back
yeah.
up. Eric and I got some
I'm
music to play.
telling you,
We're gonna
you
visit you
you
and
guys got to come down and play at the Transparent Gallery. I mean, you
Yeah.
probably there's a couple of obviously great venues in Asbury Park, from the Wonder Bar to the Saint, to the Stone Pony and the Asbury Lanes, which is right next to me there. But I just have to remind, well, I don't have to remind Kate, but I remind ourselves what a great time we had, and the fact that the gallery is the Transparent Gallery is, it's not just a gallery, an art gallery,
no.
but it's a gathering place, it's a community place, it's a live music space. Um,
Tina, the
it,
epic, amazing
yeah,
Tina, who is the
yeah,
coolest, most
oh,
badass woman.
oh
I
yeah,
mean,
and it's dog friendly, of course. Uh, but we had a jam and a half in there, did we not? I mean,
dude,
it was,
the first night, like we go there, okay, and then I look, Jake's there, Mike's plugging in, you're on stage, and then that was just the first night we're just hanging out in the gallery, and then next day under the tent, we got Chris Storm, we got Joseph Arthur, we got Rachel, we got. I mean, it just was like
I mean,
this is. I
incredible.
told
Yeah,
them in
cool.
the interview, I said this was a. They were like, "What's an epic career moment for you?" And I'm like, "I gotta say, Danny's here now under the tent, bananas. That's all I want to do,
Bananas.
and I just want to bring Eric now too. I'm like, let's just go play with Danny and friends."
It's, that to me, has been my new sort of creative outlet and daily, like, dream, and daily joy, is playing music with people, because it took me a long time. I've been playing my harmonica and that for now, like 25 years, and really for the first 20 years, like, I really was not very comfortable. I could have fun, and it was fun, and we were able to, but you know, I just really wasn't able to just relax and enjoy the musical conversation, because I didn't really feel like I was good enough to do that. And I was always thinking about, how I sounded, and like, well, but I got to tell you, man, the last, 5-10 years, and especially since the gallery opened, 4 years ago, being able to play a lot all the time with different musicians instead of the same guys all the time,
Yeah.
um, really just opened up a lot of things for me, and it became like so joyful for me to just, show up at the gallery and there'd be a band playing, and someone would say, "Did you bring your harps?" And I'm like, "Of course, come on up and play." And now, even if I went up and just played one song, or in fact, everybody would leave, and then just like Rachel would be there with a couple of her friends, and we'd put a band together, and it'd be like, just
So
the
cool.
people on the stage jamming in there. And I remember one time, actually, uh, I went to see Danny Harrison, playing with his band, in Manasquan, up the road from us, and it was a kind of an early gig, and they finished up, and uh, Danny, George Harrison's son, Danny, and his manager Dave Zonshine, are good friends of mine. And I said, "What are you guys doing?" They said, "Oh, we're going to head to the airport. We're going to stay overnight at the airport hotel, and then we got an early flight in the morning." And I was like, "No, no, no." And I said, "Well, let's go back to the gallery, and we're going to go hang out there, right?" So we stop, we grab a couple of beers, whatever. We go to the gallery, and I've got everything in there. I got a drum kit, bass amp, I got guitar amps, all guitars, everything. And the only thing I didn't have, as we started. So I bring them there. Let me just say this: I bring them there, and you can't bring a bunch of musicians into a space that has amplifiers and guitars and a
Yeah.
drum kit, and not have them pick one up and start to play. And so we start picking stuff up, and they're like, "Oh, look at this guitar," and like, "Oh, these cool old Supro amps," and and they're like picking up everything, and somebody's like, "Well, where's the bass?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't have a bass. That's the one thing I don't have, is a bass." And so the bass player, he goes, "Oh, I got my bass." He goes out to the car, and we have a jam, as we normally do, right? So great time. everybody really enjoyed it. We talked about the photography. It's all musicians, and so fast forward like 2 weeks, and a big box shows up at the gallery, and I'm like, "What is this?" Right? And we like bust this thing open, and it's like a signature Flea bass
Shut
that
up.
Danny and David sent to the gallery and said, "Here's your bass guitar." So now you have a bass. I was like, "Yes." Oh my gosh, of all basses, right? You get the
No
the
way.
Fender Flea bass. Ooh, we all just were like, "You got to be kidding me."
So good.
Yeah. It's good stuff. Good stuff for sure.
Oh man. Well,
That's not good.
we can't wait to come out and hang and see it and jam.
you
Not
know,
out there.
you got to do it, and in pre-COVID times, we'd have 3 or 4 musicians come up, and we'd give them a couple of songs each, or if it was 2 musicians, they would have 5 or 6 songs or whatever. And it's funny because oftentimes someone might walk by who was like playing at the Asbury Lanes and look in and go like, "Oh, what's going on in there?" And they'd come in and we're like, "Oh, who are you?" Like, "Oh, I'm so and so, and I'm from Nashville, and I'm playing at the Lanes tonight. I'm the opening band for Langhorne Slim or whatever." And be like, "Oh, cool. Like, well, you got your guitar? Yeah. Well, you want to come in and play a couple songs?" And they'd be like, "Okay." And we'd have people come in and just have a jam like. Gary Clark Jr. was playing at the Stone Pony, and he came in one time and sat in a big circle of people and did a jam. G Love did the same thing. So many people have come through. It really is.
It's so
It
special.
seems like a dream. I mean, these
No,
days
it feels
because
like
we're so far out from that stuff, right?
Seriously.
I can't wait. I mean,
Man.
it's just so special, and I think about it all the time, and it just what you've created there, and I'm just so grateful that I met you a year ago through the project with Mike, and now getting to talk to you with Eric. It just means so much. So
Well, the feeling's mutual. I love the. I was gonna say the thing that I'm most grateful for in my photography career really is the life experiences I get through my photography and the people that I've gotten to meet. It's just such a joy to meet new people all the time and creative people and now that we're in Asbury Park too, full time, as a at the gallery, it just seems really exciting. We're a block from the ocean, and there's so much great music going on there and stuff. And anyway, we're super stoked on it. So anybody that comes to the Asbury Park, uh, come to the Transparent Gallery. You can also follow us. We have Transparent
yeah,
Clinch
where can
Gallery.
we find you? Yeah,
You
all
got
the
all
places.
that stuff right. Danny Bone 64 for me. See Here Now Festival, all that stuff. Is fun, and people do come from all over the world to come to the gallery, just because of all the artists that I've crossed paths with, whether it's Pearl Jam or it's Bruce Springsteen, Fish, Foo Fighters, and Nas and the Tupac stuff that I have hanging up in there.
It's so cool. Yeah, you can flip through all the, it's like you have the shirts, you have the merch, and
Yeah,
something
Yeah.
at every price point, really, too.
absolutely. Yeah,
Which is really
yeah.
special.
If
So
you love music, there's something in there for you,
And when the world opens back up, the Danny Clinch tour T-shirt.
dude. I'm telling you. I thought about it. I looked through my archive and I looked through like, oh my gosh, if this whatever week I did, I mean that whole thing, her future, Pearl Jam, it's like it's so interesting, and I forget at one point there's this one run of things that I did. I remember when it actually happened, and it was years ago. It was probably in the late '90s or something, and I did. It was in one week I photographed Fish, Dish, and Fig Dish. So we were like, I was like, look at this, Fish, Dish, and Fig Dish. Come on,
yeah,
how did that happen?
pretty
Oh,
roasting on that one. Oh,
too
right.
funny. I don't
All
know.
right. Well, big
So,
hugs.
Yes.
yeah,
Hugs.
you guys are good. You're psyched about the music you're making, and you're gonna come
Yeah.
out and see
Yeah.
us in Amesbury?
Our album comes out. We're gonna send the vinyl's taking a while. The vinyl won't be ready until the fall, but
Yeah.
right, Eric?
But we're ready. We're itching. You know, this same type of thing. Like the shutdown happened, like right when we were rearing to go, and so here we are a year later. But we'll get there, man. We can't wait to come see you and to hit up all the spots that we had planned before this whole thing happened.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys. Thanks for having me.
All right.
It's nice to be in Seattle for a little while.
I know. I can't wait to see you here again.
All right, you guys.
All right, man.
Cool.
Take good care.
Cheers.
Okay, cool. We're hitting record.